Jeff Buller Show. Today I have with me Robert Alvarez. Now, Robert is the CFO of BigCommerce, which went to IPO last year and is now valued at in north of $4 or $5 billion. Robert's got superpowers. His superpower is to be an awesome CFO. Let me tell you a bit more about him. He's actually been behind about 4 IPOs and also sales. It started with a company called Crossroads Systems that raised $85 million back in 99, 2004. That would have been an interesting time with digital tech during the .com crash and boom, or boom and crash. It then was involved with Conformative Systems, bought by Intel in 2005, I believe. Augmentix Corp. It was behind going from 5 million sales to 54 million in sales in 3 years, and that was bought by a company that then sold to Dell. Then he was behind as CFO of Libre Digital, which is another technology company which helps consumers discover and read books and serves tech, I believe, to Amazon and Google and Apple books. So welcome to the show, Robert. That's quite a resume. And obviously you discovered why you're here on the planet.
Well, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you having me. Yeah, it's, appreciate that intro.
So you joined BigCommerce in 2011, I believe. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, yep. Late 11.
Okay. So basically, what got you into the whole finance? I believe that you worked for Dell as a financial analyst in 94, 95, and then you're at Price Waterhouse doing auditing, I think, for a few years across a whole range of companies in tech as well. Yeah. So what got you into being in finance and CFO? Was there like a wake-up call? What did you wake up one day and say, I want to be an accountant?
I'll tell you, man, I wish I had that much foresight. But by the time I'm the youngest of 3 kids, my brother is 7 years older than me, and he went to Berklee College of Music. He got all the musical talent in the family, and he graduated and couldn't find a job. So he ended up getting his MBA in finance, and anyway, he started his career after he got that degree. So by the time I got to school, I was paying my way through school. So I just needed to make sure that when I graduated, I got a job. So, I went to the University of Texas Business School. I remember going to the counselor and I said, what's the major I can major in to make pretty much guarantee that I'll have a job after I graduate? And they said, well, accounting has the highest job placement rate out of the school. And I said, sign me up. That was my number one goal, was to make sure that I had a job when I graduated school. Yeah. I wish it's a better story, but that's the truth.
Well, it hasn't hurt you. That is for sure. So, and you're very good at what you do. And I went and when I was choosing my degree that I wanted to do, I chose accounting, actually. So I started my accounting degree, and I was about 6 months in. And part of the reason I wanted to, I want to make some money, right? Some good money. And I believe that if you're an accountant in the finance area, you should be able to make money, right? So, so I chose it for all the wrong reasons. So I was 6 months in, and I realized I hated it. Yeah. So I finished my first year, hung in there, and then pivoted to being a teacher, but with some accounting, major, or minor. So I pivoted.
Well, it's funny. I remember maybe it was my 3rd or 4th accounting class, and I was having a hard time with it. And my mom is actually, she was a professor of accounting in the Philippines. And she's really good at accounting. And I remember telling her, what I was struggling with, and she said, just come see me and spend the weekend with me. And I did. I went to see her, and we spent the whole weekend. And in that weekend, my mom basically laid it out for me in ways that I could totally understand. And I completely got it after one weekend with my mom. So she was pretty critical in my ability to get that degree. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, it's sometimes the difference between having a good teacher and a bad teacher can be the difference between loving what you do and not loving what you do.
That's right. That's right.
So
and then I was really, I just, accounting was my major, but I think the passion was around business. And I just was really fascinated by business and what it took to run businesses. And I think accounting is a really great foundation for all of that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So because I'm not good at, the accounting part, I hire good people to look after that for me, tax accountant, bookkeeper, because sometimes you can realize that you don't have the abilities in these areas, but you still need to be looking after that. So, So you went and worked for Dell for about a year. And that was, I suppose, towards the peak of the PC revolution, when Dell was growing fast back then, even, I think. And then you moved to Price Waterhouse, and you were doing a bit of auditing, but then what got you to your next part is where you started to get into, I suppose, a senior role in the finance area to help companies get on top of their business processes and finances. So what got you into Crossroads Systems, which is the first one?
Yeah, my mentor at PwC, he's still a mentor today and one of my closest friends. He decided to leave PwC to help Crossroads go public. I had just gotten married, and I had already moved to Dallas to be with my wife. And I remember him calling me, and I said, well, okay, let me go meet with you and meet with the team. And I remember saying, gosh, we just got married, we're living in Dallas. Like, my wife loved her job at the time, and it would have been a tough move to move back to Austin. But I remember driving down to Dallas, and I thought to myself, man, I don't know if this is the right time. I need a sign. I was basically saying, I just need a sign. But so by the time I met with him and the team, meetings went great. He, said, hey, just RA, wait for me in this conference room. Let me huddle up with the team. And I looked down at the conference room name of this conference room, and it said Gecko, GECKO. And every password on any password I used on the internet was Gecko, because my three favorite movies was The Godfather, Scarface, and Wall Street. And Gordon Gekko was the character in Wall Street. So Gecko was like my password for everything. And I looked down, I said, man, you got to be kidding me. And I remember calling my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, and I said, you're not going to believe this. She's like, how did it go? I was like, you're not going to believe this, but the name of the conference room was Gecko. And she said, oh my goodness, that means we're moving to Austin. She didn't say those. She didn't say those words. She said a bad word, but she said she knew that was the sign. And anyway, it's been a great. I'm so thankful for that, because this is my fifth venture-backed startup, all in Austin. I think I was telling you, Jeff, earlier, I met my wife at school, and we always dreamt of raising 3 kids in Austin, and we feel like we're living that dream. And a lot of what I learned along the way is, I look at these startups, and Austin has a lot of great startups, and I kind of developed this lens on, what makes a great startup company or tech company. And before BigCommerce, there was really 3 things. It was, how big is the market? How disruptive is the product? And do I believe in the team? And can I help build a culture so that the company can reach its potential? When I joined BigCommerce, I added a 4th one. And I think the 4th one is something that I would actually put number 1 now. And, does it resonate with you on a personal level? You can work at a lot of tech companies and have great success. And whether or not it's a amazing outcome or not an amazing outcome, it's the same amount of work. It's the same amount of commitment. So you might as well apply like a lens to which companies you decide to join. And before BigCommerce, it was really those three. But the fourth one was, does it resonate with you on a personal level? And there's no company that I've ever worked at that resonated with me on such a personal level than BigCommerce. And I realized that actually in my first month at the company. It hit home, because what we do is we help merchants be successful selling online. And I'll tell you, I saw so many merchants that we were helping, and their success stories and their before and afters. And I was like, wow, this is not just a product company or technology company. I mean, this is really making a big difference. And I just kept thinking about my dad, you know, in our journey. Like, I'm an immigrant from the Philippines. We moved here when I was, 3.5 years old. Yeah. And I remember, you know, my dad had a great business in the Philippines, and he thought, hey, I'll start a great business here in the States. And it's just not that easy. It was really hard for him and my mom. And, you know, I remember in our house in Houston, he would make his goods. He turned our garage into a factory, you know, making snakeskin belts and snakeskin boots. And, you know, I'm 9 years old. I just want to hang out with my dad. So I go in there and I'm learning how to do that. And we'd go to like a flea market in Houston to try to sell his goods. And, you know, we'd be so happy if like 10 or 15 people walked by to see, you know, to try to buy something, and maybe 2 or 3 would buy something. But all those merchants that I was telling you about, they just reminded me of my dad and my mom. And I thought to myself, gosh, if something like this were available for my parents, what an amazing impact it would have made for them. So, you know, boom, it hit me on a personal level. And I'm about to be 10 years at BigCommerce, and I don't think that if it wasn't so personal, I don't know, you know, because it's never a straight line up. There's a ton of ups and downs. And, you know, when it resonates with you on a personal level, you can get through a lot. You can stick through a lot, and it's made a huge difference.
Yeah, and so I used to be a business development salesperson for an e-commerce website design company back before I started jeffbullis.com. And I, for 4 years, have worked basically selling and designing websites for e-commerce. So, and that was sort of before the rise of, you know, the cloud sourced software as a service essential companies such as BigCommerce and should I mention the competitors? One of the big competitors named Shopify. So
yeah. That's okay. That's okay.
But yeah, so I've had 4 years in the e-commerce area, and so I certainly when we used a platform called Magento to build custom built sites.
Yeah.
So and I totally get what you mean by it. And what I love about your story too is that you saw your dad struggling with doing commerce the old hands-on way.
That's right.
The analog way.
The analog way.
And now we're in the digital way, and also in the cloud. And you also, I think what I love about BigCommerce is that you've made it easy for people to start and grow an online store. And and what you guys are doing is help people, I suppose, find freedom through building their own business and building their dream, I suppose. So,
yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And I'll say in my 10 years at BigCommerce, I mean, e-commerce has evolved, you know, quickly. We talk a lot about it took 20 plus years for e-commerce to be even 10% of retail, and that was in 2017. So think about that for a second. 2017, e-commerce was only 10% of retail, and they were predicting that it would double in 5 years. I mean, that was the pace of the acceleration. Well, we're already there. You know, we're already past that mark. And you know, as I think about kind of the next 10 years, I know the pace of innovation that's taken place in the last 10 years. I'm so excited about what's going to happen in the next 10. I mean, when you think about consumer behavior and where products can be bought in all the different ways products can be bought today, and all the innovation that's going to come from companies like BigCommerce and the whole ecosystem of technology partners that are really innovating ways to just make that consumer buying experience better and faster and more reliable. I don't think there's any question that 20% is going to get to 30, 40, or 50, or maybe even more. I don't know if it's going to happen in the next 10 years, but that's certainly where we're headed.
Yeah, and there's also quite often an industry or technology gets supercharged when there's an intersection of technologies.
Mm-hmm.
And I see some of the intersection of the technologies around number one is the software is a lot cheaper and better and easy to use that builds the platforms. Mm-hmm. I think one of the recent startups last year called Clubhouse, I think was built in a week with software tools.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And also one of the other intersections is of tech, is logistics. We have global logistics now. I know my partner ordered a rug, and I'm talking, something that's like 2 meters high and wrapped up, of course, but she ordered it and it came from the East Coast of America and landed at the front door in a week.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
And it's gonna get to 2 days and then 1 day at some point. It's gonna, it's amazing that happened, but it's only gonna get better. And with us, we just take a philosophy that e-commerce is evolving, and we want to enable merchants to do e-commerce their way. There are a lot of platforms in the market that you kind of have to do it that platform's way, which is why we really try to be as flexible and customizable and really bring who we feel are the very best technology solutions for whatever merchants need. And I think that's been a big reason why we've grown so much. And, I think it's going to be a really compelling differentiation for us as we move forward. I mean, if you're a merchant today versus 5 years ago, your e-commerce decision is a really important one. I mean, you're trying to future-proof your business. If the last 18 months has taught us anything, is being able to sell online is really, really important. And so if you take a step back and you're the one making a decision on what platform to choose, it's more and more that we hear that it really is, how do I future-proof this? How do I really grow and scale my business on this platform? And it's going to be really fascinating to see over time how it all plays out. But we're really excited about what that future looks like.
So what do you think the future does look like for e-commerce in the next 10 years? Because obviously you guys are building tech and also looking to the future so that you can help those companies future-proof themselves. What do you see the future for e-commerce over the next 10 years?
You're starting to see it already, right? I mean, back in the day, you'd have to go to a branded website to buy products or a marketplace to buy products. And, you're already seeing ways that no matter if it's a social channel or an ad channel or whatever you're browsing on your phone or your tablet, that buying experience, we feel like we have to help our merchants meet consumers where they are. And where the consumers are is on the screen of the phone or screen on the tablet. And those buying experiences are just going to get better and better and better. What you see, what you're browsing, you can buy it right there. It's shown up exactly. It's beautiful. It shows up exactly the right way. And then to your point, you actually get it. You get it quick enough to meet your expectations, and what you thought you were buying, you're actually going to get it, right? And so as these buying experience get better and better, I think it's really important for merchants to think about, hey, I'm not selling just to consumers who are on my website or on a marketplace. I want to sell my products to everywhere consumers look for products like mine. And I think that's evolving. It's evolving very, very quickly. And I think, you hear a lot about omni-channel. I mean, a lot of that is omni-channel. So for us, super important. Like if you're a merchant on BigCommerce, in one click, your products can be found on Amazon, eBay, Wish, Walmart, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, whatever that channel is. Our goal is to make sure that wherever consumers are browsing for products like yours, that we're the best platform to drive that demand and drive those orders to your business. Our whole model is a shared success model. Like we price based on our merchants' success, and if they're successful, we'll be successful. And so, driving demand, driving orders. I mean, as you know, revenue is the lifeline of business. So the more revenue we can drive for our merchants, is going to be pretty critical.
Yeah. So how do you see maybe, the likes of AI and other tech? How do you see that impacting e-commerce?
It's funny. I mean, even offline retail, I think the offline retailers that are going to make it and do well are the ones that have kind of a unique experience about them. There's a lot of merchants also that are now going direct to consumer, which is great. But even online, if you're a merchant, you want your site to look different. You want it to be unique. You want it to be differentiated. You want it to be specific to your business. And there's a lot of great front-end tools to make sure that you can really customize your front-end user experience in ways to really make it unique. And because we're so flexible, we work with all of those technology partners that allows merchants to leverage those types of technologies and then leverage BigCommerce on all the hard backend components for commerce. And so we think that those front-end technologies are only going to continue to evolve. I mean, you talk about AI and the power that can bring. I mean, if you're a merchant, merchandising is really powerful, making sure you're selling and promoting the products that are going to sell the most. Really information, like if you think about the data that a platform like BigCommerce collects, I mean, one of the things that we want to do is expose that data to our merchant because we believe it's their data. It's not our data. We need to expose that data so that they can run their business better and more successfully. So a lot of the things that we're working on is using those types of tools to make sure that we highlight to merchants which channels are working, where is their products being found, how do you, imagine a merchant if we can tell them, hey, this many orders is coming from this marketplace, this many orders is coming from this social channel or ad channel. Now all of a sudden they can spend some marketing dollars, ad dollars to drive more demand across those channels, and it really helps them drive their business. So I think data is going to be super important. And when you think about personalization and merchandising, all of that is going to get better with machine learning, data, AI tools. We just bought a company recently called Feedonomics. We have all these great integrations to all these channel partners. But what Feedonomics allows us to do is to make sure that we take all of our data. They built out AI tools to structure that data in ways that they can syndicate that data to all the different channels that are out there that meet the requirements of each and every one of those channels. So what does that do? It makes the buying experience that much better. It makes those products, pictures and descriptions that much more accurate. It drives orders, it drives conversion. It increases their return on ad spend when they know exactly where to spend their ad dollars. And so, for us, we're already leveraging AI. I mean, we just bought a company where their AI tools we think is going to be very impactful for driving demand and orders across those channels to our merchants.
That's very interesting about the company you bought, which is, I think, Feedonomics. Or was that what you're saying? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how's that spelled?
Feedonomics, F-E-E-D.
Yep.
O-N-O-M-I-C-S. Yeah.
Okay. This is sort of was being the holy grail for advertisers, is to get that one dashboard view of data and analytics across multiple platforms.
That's great.
And that has been a challenge, hasn't it, for quite a few years in being able to do that. And Feedonomics has done that.
They take the they call them the data feeds, and they can syndicate it in a way where they take that data and you can really customize how your products are described and what they look like across any channel. I think they're integrated with 100 different channels. But what we've learned is that it's one thing to build out these integrations with Amazon, with Walmart, with Wish, with Facebook, and Instagram. It's another thing to optimize the user experience and the consumer experience. And that data is really, really important. The way it's being described and the way that data is syndicated, it's called syndicated. And which is a big reason why we felt like this is when we asked our merchants, when we asked our partners, who are the very best at solving this problem, it was Feedonomics. And so anytime you do an acquisition, you want it to be a 1 + 1 = 10. And we feel like this one is, because if you take what they're great at this feed management and syndication, and then you take what we're great at as being the e-commerce platform, that's a very powerful combination, and one that I think merchants are really going to benefit from.
Yeah. I was doing some reading a while back, and they're saying that one thing that takes an industry from being average to being amazing is having a user-friendly interface or user experience. And you only have to think about the internet. In other words, when did the internet really take off? It's when the browser turned up and provided that interface or user experience that made it easy.
That's right.
And that's when the internet really took off.
That's right. Well, another catalyst was, I'd say, the iPhone. I mean, I was talking to my kids, the other day, and we were saying, I think the first iPhone was, you tell me, 2007, 2008, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was like, I took a step back and I thought about that. I mean, that wasn't that long ago. That was 13, 14 years ago. And you can see how far we've come with what you can do on your phone or your tablet, and how consumers have just completely adapted to it, and expectations around it. And you apply all those things to e-commerce. This is why I was telling you about the innovation for the next 10 years. It's just going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah. The iPhone certainly changed the interface and made it easy for everyone to use.
Made it easy.
Yeah, and that's when we basically democratized the smartphone, and it brought that to the masses. And the browser democratized the use of the internet, because before that it was left to geeks and professors at universities who basically had to manage. But then on top of that, then there was also the intersection of personal computers and laptops at the same time.
That's right.
And the other thing I think about too is one of the reasons social media worked so well was because the smartphone happened much around the same time as well, and people were able to get information and share photos. Everyone became publishers. So it's that user interface. In other words, you could share photos anywhere you were, or you could receive information on the go. Whereas before, you had to rush home, open your computer to get the information needed, whereas the smartphone just turned that on its head and made it available to everyone anywhere, anytime. So So
and platforms like BigCommerce too. I mean, we've now made it really easy for you to sign up and start an online store without knowing any code or knowing how to develop anything. We use really simple, intuitive drag and drop widgets to make sure that you could probably launch your store on BigCommerce in less than a day using our drag and drop widgets, and that experience has been so much easier than it was 10 years ago. Launching an online store and doing that successfully. So all of those advancements, I think, we're going to make it easier and easier. We're going to remove as much friction as possible, and I think for us, we just want to make sure that we really are we believe we're the most flexible SaaS e-commerce platform in the market. And I think that's a big reason for our success.
So you're saying your major differentiator then is that you make user interface or user experience, you make the user experience very easy and intuitive.
It's one of them. I mean, it's definitely one of them.
Yeah.
We serve merchants of all sizes, so small, medium, and large. So small merchants, they really, really value the simplicity and that user experience. When you start talking about large enterprise merchants, they value that, but they really value being able to customize their site. I always like to say, if you need a whiteboard to map out your e-commerce platform and all the different touch points that power your e-commerce, BigCommerce shines really bright, because BigCommerce can be that hub. And if you think about all the other services around e-commerce, payments, shipping, fulfillment,
Yep.
Marketing, omni-channel, tax, ERP, accounting, not only are we bringing our product development, the benefits of our product development, but we are really bringing an ecosystem of big technology partners that we believe are the very best across those services. We have a great lineup of who we think are the very best in payments and shipping and fulfillment and email marketing and all of those different very important pieces around commerce. And so if you're a merchant and you're a large merchant and you've got all these existing systems, we allow you to kind of rip and replace the things that aren't working for you, allow you to keep the things that are. And because how open our platform is, we can integrate it all together for you as that hub. And so what resonates with a small merchant is different than what resonates with a large merchant. So yes, we've got to make it super easy, but we also have to make it very flexible, very customizable, and we call it open. We call our SaaS platform an open SaaS platform, which really resonates with the larger merchants.
Yeah. So what's yours like in terms of what are some of your biggest clients that use BigCommerce?
Oh, we've got some great ones. Procter & Gamble powers a lot of their direct-to-consumer sites on BigCommerce. SC Johnson, Sony, Skull Candy headphones like the ones we're wearing right now. There's a long list of really, really big brands, but then there's also a long list of SMB merchants, mid-market merchants. We also do B2B merchants really well. So we're one platform, but we can support both B2C and B2B merchants, which is very unique. So we've got a long list of some really great companies in both categories.
Wow, that's certainly some big brands there. So let's dive a little bit into, you've been involved with startups, okay, digital startups. What are some of the lessons you've learned along the way about what a startup should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing, what are some of the biggest mistakes and the challenges?
Yeah, I mean, a couple come to mind. All of my venture startups, we raised money through venture capital, and I think it's really important to bring on the right investors that are aligned to the vision and the potential of the company, are willing to play the long game, because this doesn't happen overnight. It's like you don't go IPO overnight. Like it's a journey, and you've got to have conviction around it. So it's really important to have your investors, who are your early board members, share that conviction and that alignment. And I know another lesson I've learned is, as you scale the business, like for us, we were founded in Sydney. We opened up a headquarters in Austin, but then we were growing in San Francisco and in London and Kyiv, and we got all these offices opening up, and the team starting to get spread out. And when you start hiring hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, it's really easy for companies to lose, I would say, to lose its soul along the way, which means that they lose sight of the culture. And so one of the things that I learned is you got to put a system in place around your culture if you want to maintain that soul. And that's what we did. We have our own system in place. We recruit for it. We performance management around it. We promote people around it. We hold ourselves accountable to it. We make tough decisions around it. And I think it's one thing to have values on a board, or you talk about culture, but if your actions don't follow up, or if your actions say anything different. I mean, actions always speak louder than words. So you got to have that system, and then your actions have to really promote it and support it. So if you talk to anyone at BigCommerce, no matter what location, they'll talk about, we call it bucket one and bucket two. Bucket one is your resume, it's your skill set, it's your experience. Bucket two is the intangibles that we look for. We really love people who, I always say, are selfless, play the we game, not the me game. We look for people who are purpose-driven, passionate, and then we always like to say ambitious, very ambitious in their thinking and their goals, but have a really beautiful degree of humility about them, that they know that when they look at themselves in the mirror, they know they can get better, and they know that they can learn from the person next to them, and they're brave enough to reach out for advice and reach out for help, and it can keep their learning curve super steep. And being ambitious, if you ask anyone at BigCommerce in any office, they'll tell you exactly what it is.
I love that word. It's ambitious.
Humility is a superpower. People don't realize it, but I think humility is a superpower.
Well, if you're humble and you listen, you can learn. If you're just blindly ambitious and run over people and don't listen, well, how can you learn? That's right. Yeah.
And that's how you build. I think that's how you build trust. I think that's how you really feel like you're part of a team. That's where you really start to care about the people that you work with. And man, Jeff, I'll tell you, I've never spent a day at BigCommerce where it's felt like a job. This is a place that it's never just felt like a job. It's across the board. We're surrounded by some amazing human beings that I care an awful lot about and love and respect and admire and get inspired by, on a daily basis.
Yeah. Well, obviously that must be being driven by the founders. Is that correct?
For sure. Yeah. Eddie and Mitch laid that foundation. And I remember a story. I was catching up with Eddie, and we were growing offices and hiring a bunch of people. And he was paying me a big compliment. He was saying, he was looking at the people I was hiring, and then he was asking, these are the folks that are getting promoted. These are the folks that are always raising their hand. They're always willing to help. And he's like, what do you do? How do you do it? How are you doing that? And that's when I explained to him this whole bucket one and bucket two on the recruiting front, on what to look for when you're hiring people. And man, he was like, RA, you need to clear your plate. Starting tomorrow, I want you to roll out bucket one and bucket two to every team, to every leader, to every manager, to every office. And I don't want you to do anything else until you've done that. And we did. That's exactly what we did.
Can you restate what bucket one and bucket two are?
Sure. Yeah. Bucket one is what you see on your LinkedIn, your experience, your education, your skill set. Bucket two is, I always like to say, it's the things that my parents taught me, and my wife and I are really trying really hard to teach our kids, people that, that are just wired in a way where they're selfless, they're team oriented. They play the we game, not the me game. It's not about when things go right, they give credit to other people. When things go wrong, they take ownership. When they look at themselves in the mirror, they focus on things that they can get better at, not the things that they're already good at. But then most importantly, I think it's people who are ambitious, ambitious in their goals and thinking. But I always say beautiful, because I think adding that word beautiful matters, that beautiful degree of humility about them that really pushes them every day and makes them better, makes the team better. And, I think that's how you build a great team.
Yeah. Yeah. I met Eddie, one of the founders, back in 2011. I was telling you before we actually started.
Yeah.
So, and I was impressed. That was in about 2011, I think it was. And I met at a coffee shop in Sydney, and because we're looking at maybe doing some social media marketing as BigCommerce wanted to grow. We didn't end up doing that piece of work with him, but we've recently reconnected with one of your team members of the team, and we're actually doing some work for BigCommerce at the moment. So
excellent.
yeah. So
I remember when I first joined the company, there was a sign Mitch had wrote, no jerks allowed. That was a rule on the board. No jerks allowed. Check your ego. Check your ego at the door. There's no jerks allowed here. And so we've just built on that philosophy.
Yeah, I would totally agree, because you got to work with them day in, day out, and being ambitious is a great term. Where did you pick? Is that a word you created, or did you found it somewhere else?
No, I think I read about it somewhere, and it was a word that just so resonated with me. I don't exactly remember where I saw it, but it was like, yeah, that's it. That's the type of people that we want. Because what I've learned is that you can teach a lot of bucket one. It's really hard to teach bucket two.
Oh yeah.
By the time we get you, a lot of that's it's pretty wired in at that point.
Yeah.
So when you're recruiting people, you might as well spend as much time as you need to assess someone's bucket two, because if you hire them, it only takes a handful of people to really hurt a company's culture. And so if you don't take that time to assess that bucket two, those are skills, those are things that are really, really hard to teach. Much easier to teach bucket one. I'd take someone with a high bucket two and low bucket one, because I know I could teach bucket one, but someone with a low bucket two, hard to teach. Not very I always like to say, if you want to be mentored, you have to be mentorable. If you want to be coached, you've got to be coachable. People with low bucket two, very hard to coach, very hard to mentor.
Yeah, exactly. So what are there's some really great insights. Love them. Love the word ambitious. And so what else is important as you starting company? So you said bring on investors that are willing to play the long game, that are going to be, I suppose, congruent with the company culture, so that because you've got to work together as a team. And I've heard some horror stories in the past of investors that come in and they basically rape and pillage. They don't care. They want quick bucks. So
one thing that helped us a ton is, we hired our CEO, Brent, back in 2015. Eddie led the search for Brent. We were growing really fast. We were about to do a big round of funding with SoftBank. The investor at SoftBank says, hey, we want to do this deal, but we really think the CEO should be in the United States. That made Eddie kind of pause and think through. He was having babies at the time, and his wife was having babies at the time. He said, well, I can't move to the States. But he's like, this may be the best time to bring someone on that really knows how to scale this company. And one of the things that we, once Brent joined us, it was really understanding and building a strategy around the segment of the market that we're going to be focused on, how we're going to differentiate, what are the table stakes, what are we going to build ourselves, what are we going to partner with, or what are we going to solve through partnerships. And that just strategy of kind of where you're going to be really good and where you're going to be the best, and what is it going to take to build a product and platform that can meet that segment's needs the best. I think it provided a really, really strong focus for the business. And a lot of times with startups, it's really hard to focus because you want to do everything for everybody. And so having kind of, hey, this is what we're going to be really great at. Here's what's just table stakes. Here's what's real differentiators. Really helped us get to where we are, and it was a big reason why we IPO'd. That evolution of our platform and how we were winning in that segment and what we were doing was a big reason why we were able to go public last year.
So the term table stakes. Explain that.
Well, it's just you have to have it. Whatever product you have, like whatever development you need to do to meet the requirements as not going to make you any different, but you just have to have it in order for it to work. What we call them table stakes.
Okay, is that based upon a casino term? Like you're going to stake at the table? Is that what it is?
I guess so. I don't know. No one's ever asked me that question before, but yeah, that's the gist of it.
I'd say. Okay, cool. Now, the other things you mentioned the word scale, and that's a challenge that a lot of companies have, is that they start small. The founder, they just get in and do stuff, and along the way they forget to do certain things. They just don't have the time. You can't do everything. But as you grow up a little bit, you realize that processes and procedures and documenting is very, very important.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested in your insights on that, because that's almost one of the key things I hear every time is creating processes and documenting them. So I'd be interested in your thoughts and experience with that.
Yeah, I'd say the early rounds of funding that companies go through, I mean, it's all about establishing that product market fit. And then maybe they raise their next round or B round or C round. And it's all about building out that scalable sales and marketing engine, the repeatable sales model to really drive revenue, grow revenue. Once you kind of build that sales and marketing muscle and machine, then it is, how do you scale the business? And that's where the operational aspects of running a company, whether it's systems, processes, and people, that's when you really have to bring in folks that know how to solve those things. I always tell people there are no perfect people, but there can be perfect teams. And when you kind of get to that phase, all of the things that you're struggling with operationally, systems wise, reporting wise, compliance wise, that's when you say, all right, now I gotta add to my perfect team by looking at myself in the mirror and finding people who are really great at the things that we're not great at. And that's when that kind of scaling the company phase, operational phase, is when founders or CEOs or management teams really need to solve for that. And then pre-IPO, you really have to have those things in place. You've got to, if you're doing a readiness plan around an IPO, it really is about your processes, your systems, and your people to make sure that you're ready to handle the rigor that comes with the scrutiny and the rigor and requirements that come with being publicly traded.
And that raises an interesting question that I think a lot of companies are growing rapidly go, do I do an IPO? In other words, go public with all that rigor and I suppose accountability, or do I sell to another company? In other words, a buyout. So what's your thoughts on those two? Because I've been involved with one of the founders of a company called Shutterrock New Zealand. I was on the board for nearly 10 years and on the board director in Australia for the company Shutterrock. And we've been going 10 years and we're now got over 200 staff globally. But the founder has gone through both an IPO in Japan for his first company. And then the next step is, do we do an IPO for this one, or do we sell it to another company? What are your thoughts on that as an exit strategy?
Yeah, exit strategies are funny because if let's talk about M&A. I always say great companies are bought, not sold. You don't want to run a company or build a company with selling the company in mind. If some strategic comes your way and is wanting to buy you because you're very valuable, then that's different than you saying, well, we need to tee this up to sell it. And an IPO is just a funding event. So in no way is it an exit for us. I mean, we're nowhere near the potential that we have as a company. The IPO was a fundraising event. And one of the reasons that we did it was because we were one of like the best kept secrets in e-commerce. We didn't spend a lot of time or money on brand or awareness. And so we felt like, hey, if we go public, it's going to really increase our awareness. It's going to increase our credibility. Man, Jeff, I remember having to get on, because as we were moving up market, there was some companies that they didn't have any visibility into the company. We were a private company. They just wanted to make sure that we were a viable company and that we weren't two people in a garage. And so, I would get on the phone as the CFO and answer their questions. And now that we're public, I don't need to do that anymore. But being public gives not just investors, but partners and consumers visibility and transparency into your business. And for us, I think it was really important. If we're going to continue to move up market and disrupt the large end of enterprise, it would be really hard to do that as a private company. But we've almost now leveled the playing field because we're public, and it has definitely helped on that front. It's definitely helped on the credibility side and on the awareness side. But by no means is it an exit. It was a fundraising event, and we're just getting started. There's so much room for growth for this company, nowhere near ultimately what our potential is going to be.
Yeah, it's I love the term used in terms of a fundraising event. It's not an exit. And also the other thing that you mentioned as being a really big benefit of an IPO is visibility.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
It's
Yeah,
almost,
visibility, credibility. And we do a lot with our partners in the partner ecosystem. So having that credibility allows us to work with some of the biggest technology companies out there because we're not as risky as a private company. We're now public. And then there's a lot of technology analysts who now cover us because we are, we put ourselves on the map. I always like to say we put ourselves on the map, and now technology analysts are leaning in and really validating our story and validating all the things that we're great at. And I think being public has really helped on that front. And one other benefit of going through the IPO process, it really does. It's like a forcing function to make sure that all the things that you were not getting to, you get to, and all the things that you were waiting to fix, you go ahead and fix that, so that by the time you're public, you've got predictable revenue, you've got visibility, you're able to really forecast your business, and it adds a layer of discipline that I think is really good for any company.
Yeah. In other words, part of the process is it puts more focus on being more accountable, and
for sure.
Holds your hand close to the fire. You say, we've got to do this because that's what the market demands, and we're now visible. So it sort of raises the stakes in a way, doesn't it?
For sure. For sure it does.
So maybe just to wrap it up, I'm mindful of your time, and it's the end of your day there, and it's the beginning of mine. What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned at BigCommerce that you could share with our audience that you've learned along the way? I know you've mentioned quite a few already, but is there a couple of really important things? If you've got a startup, you're growing, what are some of the biggest lessons that you'd like to share before we finish up here?
Yeah, we talked a lot about culture. We talked a lot about scaling the business, importance of investors, alignment. Most important, make sure it resonates with you on a personal level. I think it adds a ton of purpose, not just for yourself, but it drives purpose throughout the organization. But keep your customers first. Make sure that they're the guiding light for what you're trying to solve, because with any company, you're going to get opportunities, and there's always going to be ways for you to make more money or do things to drive more revenue. But if you really kind of think through what's the best for your customer, or in our case for the merchant, it allows you to make the right decisions. It allows you to focus the teams on what really moves the needle for the benefit of your customer. We get a lot of questions around, well, why don't you build your, why don't you have your own payments platform? Why don't you do your own point of sale? And why don't you just go build these things because it'll drive more revenue? Well, the reality is we could do that, but it's not going to be in the best interest for our customer.
Yeah.
What's in the best interest for our customer is making sure we offer them the best of breed options and the freedom of choice for all those folks who do that better than anybody else. that's what's best for the customer. And so that's an example of like, all right, if we just wanted to make more money or drive more revenue, then we could go build those things. But is that really for the benefit of the merchant or the customer? No. So what did we do? We ended up buying our very first acquisition. We bought a company that's going to drive revenue and orders and drive real impact for our merchants, because we put our customers first.
Yeah.
And it's real easy to lose sight of that when so much is being thrown at you in the early days, or when you're a startup company. It's so easy to go to chase that shiny object, or to think about, oh, with our next fundraise, we've got to show this amount of revenue, so we've got to go do this or build this. It's really easy to go down that path. And for me and for BigCommerce, I think it's been super helpful to have that strategy, figure out what segment we're really going to be great at, so we can disrupt that segment. What are we going to do to differentiate ourselves? And through all of that, and through all the years, keeping the customers first, I think is super important.
Yeah, it's very important to keep that in mind. And I'm doing a little project at the moment, but we're using Facebook testing to actually work out what customers' pain points are, and even a name of a product. Just let the data tell us which is the customers, the potential customers. And so we're actually trying to define the product or tighten the product. So the vision is still there, the vision that I'm, but just trying to use data to define both the name of the company and the pain points that we need to solve, and then the education resources we need to provide behind that. But yeah, you got to keep
for the businesses that I help or give advice to. I try to keep it real simple for them when they're building their own teams out. In what I've learned is life is simple, people are complicated, and you can have values or define a culture, but if your actions don't follow those words, or if you don't do what you say, you're not going to really build the trust in the team. You're not going to build a team that really believes in you. And so, make sure you keep it to the basics, in terms of doing those things that you're supposed to do. And I think that it's going to be really helpful as you really scale with adding a bunch of people. And one thing like we didn't mention is a friend of mine at BigCommerce joined us, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and he was so excited about what we were doing because he came from a competitor. Right. And I remember his first week at BigCommerce, we have all hands meetings, and all of our new employees get to introduce themselves to all of our employees. And he was talking about a park bench moment when he's 70 something years old and he's sitting on a park bench with his grandkids. What's he going to look back on, and what's going to be that park bench moment? And he thought, given what we're doing and how we can really help and serve merchants and the impact that we can have to e-commerce and to this industry, he's like, this is going to be my park bench moment. And it's those things that I think inspire people, motivate people. You gotta help people with their purpose and make sure that they know, because days are hard, days can be long, but if they have a strong sense of purpose and know that what they're doing really is going to make a difference and be impactful, then you're going to keep them around a lot longer.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. In other words, you've got to have a fundamental underlying mission that makes a difference in people's lives. And I think then that can carry you through tough times.
For sure.
So what's the vision and mission for BigCommerce over the next 10 years?
Yeah, we want to be that platform that powers the merchant's success, no matter how big they grow. We really want to be a global company. 77% of our revenue today is still in the US, but we think it will be and should be 50-50. There's so much opportunity for us to expand internationally. And for me going on 10 years, it's crazy, but I still get so excited about what this next chapter will bring to us, because I know that the market opportunity is there. Remember what I told you earlier, Jeff, my lens around those 4 things.
Yeah.
Every
Okay.
chapter.
Could you mention those? Yeah, could you mention what those are again? That would, because just sum that up, because I thought they were awesome, frankly.
Every chapter that we've gone through as a business, and even me, myself, my personal journey, every year that goes by, there's still no company that I feel checks off those 4 boxes more so than BigCommerce. Number 1, how big is the market? Number 2, how disruptive is the product? Number 3, do I believe in the team and the culture to allow the company to reach its potential? And number 4, does it resonate with me on a personal level? Those 4 things. And so, it's a big reason why in my entire time here, I've never spoken to a recruiter, because no one, I'm 10 out of 10 on all 4 of those things, even after 10 years of BigCommerce.
Yeah, that's I love those 4, and that's why I wanted you to restate them. I thought they were really good.
There you go.
Now, Robert, thank you very much for your time, and I'm so glad that you got the call when you went to your first big company and left Dallas and went to Austin, despite
That's
the
right.
misgivings. That was your call. It was really interesting to hear that, and it was driven by intuition, not by a spreadsheet.
That's right.
Yeah.
You gotta follow your gut. You gotta follow your heart.
Yeah. And so you asked for a sign. Yeah.
and sometimes in life you just gotta ask for a sign. And if you believe that you'll get one, you'll get one.
Yeah.
But you can't ignore it when you get it, is what I've learned, is don't ignore the signs.
And I love the statement by Steven Spielberg. He says, what you're meant to be doing in life never shouts, it whispers. And you got a whisper, and you asked for a sign and you got it. I think there's a lot going on at a metaphysical level that we don't see at a physical layer. And I think that makes us human, and that's the fun part. That's
right, Jeff, for sure.
So thank you very much, Robert. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've learned so much just by listening to you. I'm going to work on being even more ambitious, and the team. I think that's an awesome word. And thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. Talk soon.